Missing someone with all your heart. Missing someone with heart.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So this week's episode, I have a very challenging color correction. As you can see, she has some previous color blocking and she wasn't super happy with it. She feels like the lift is very uneven, and the blonde parts, she just wants that to be like as gray silver as possible. I would say the blonde parts have probably about like 3 different levels in them, and then the dark parts have a slight kind of ombre effect, and she would like those pieces to be completely dark. So this one was tough as far as like sectioning. I was trying to see what we could work with what she currently had, because I didn't want to bleach out any parts that were already dark because she used to have blue in her hair. So from that color history, I already know that that's probably been bleached before and then darkened. So I really want to stay away from those areas. So I have pretty much pre-sectioned the front part, and then you can see I also sectioned the blonde chunk, which is this rectangle on the top that she wants to keep blonde, away. So what we're going to be focusing on today is pretty much hitting the blonde parts to the root and evening out the blonde chunk. So the front is going to be blonde, and then this back rectangle is going to be blonde. And so another thing that I do want to mention as well is that her hair and the parts that were already blonde did feel pretty dry. So I'm going in with the K18 Professional Misting Spray to kind of prep her blonde areas, to kind of help with the strength and integrity of her hair. And I'm spraying this pretty much all over the blonde pieces only, because the dark pieces that you can see that's going to be that it's in the braid that we're going to darken later, those parts don't really need it. So I'm mostly focusing this product on the areas that are going to be lightened. And then I am going to be adding in some B3 into my lightener. So for my lightener choice today, I'm going to be using the Pulp Bright Cream Bleach. And I chose this lightener because a few reasons. It doesn't expand in the foils, and then it also is white. So I'll be able to clearly see what levels the hair is in the foil, especially when doing a correction like this, when you're trying to get the blonde a lot more even and trying to get it at least like to a level 9 and 10 all over. You want to make sure that you have something that you're very familiar with as far as the lightener, and you know exactly when to take off the lightener. So right now I'm going in with a very gentle formula, and I have cream bleach and pretty much just 6 volume, and I mix that with the B3. So I'm just going in, and you can kind of see as I'm going through the slices here that I'm really saturating in the parts that are warmer. And then wherever I find that those pieces are a level 9 or even a level 10, I'm going to stay away from them. So you can see in that mid area that I'm focusing the lightener and just wrapping that foil up. I'm not too worried about making or keeping my foils clean, because I'm going to go back in and these foils are going to come right out very soon to get this part even. But the reason why I'm going in the blonde areas first, because I want to hit those warm areas a lot sooner. And then I also figured, like, if these blonde areas were ready, I could just wipe it off. And then after I pretty much hit all of the warm spots, I will go back and hit the root. But I chose to do it this way just in case the blonde parts took a little bit longer. I find from my personal experience that lightening hair that is already blonde can sometimes take longer than you expect. Like, I would say hair that is already like a level 7 and up sometimes can sit longer than freshly virgin hair that is being lightened. So just in case that the roots got too light, if I had applied that first instead, I chose to do the ends because I could wipe those off. But if the root was ready and the ends were not, then I would have to rinse off the root. It's really difficult to wipe off lightener off the root while leaving the ends. So that is why I chose to start lightening the ends first. And then now you see I am going in with my root formula. And with my root formula, I am using the same cream bleach, but for the volume, I'm using 20 volume, which is basically just my standard strength as far as doing like any type of root retouch. And I'm keeping my foils in and just kind of sliding them down so I can hit that root. So after this side section, I'm going to move on to the next side section, and I decided to do this type of correction in quadrants, like splitting them up into sections and fully doing that one side before moving on to the next, because again, if one side was completely ready, I could definitely rinse that side out. So I did the right side of her head and then her left, and then I split the top portion into two sections as well, just to be a little bit more detailed. So again, I'm going in and hitting those really warm spots first and leaving that in the foil, and then after I have finished foiling some of that, I'm going to hit the root. Also notice that in the front money piece, there's some of the hair that I left out in the hairline. Those hairs were pretty compromised in my opinion. I felt like they were already a level 10, and I could already tell that some of them had the slightest bit of breakage, just from dryness or maybe just overlapping too much of the lightener from her previous lightening session. I wasn't really sure, but I knew for sure that I wanted to keep those out of the way. So I didn't even put those in the foil. You could see like I totally left those out and only foiled what was a little bit warmer. And so now I'm going in and hitting that root with my 20 volume, and I'm pretty much using the same strength developer for the root throughout the whole thing, and then only using that like 6 volume with the B3 on the previous lightened hair. Another thing that I want to mention is I honestly don't think I would have been able to do this correction as efficiently without my assistant Emily, because as I was doing one part, she was already checking and pulling out foils that were ready. So this was definitely a huge team effort. You can see both of us working on this. And even though it's literally just the front section, it's like such a detailed section, it took a lot of time to go through, because you couldn't let the lightener sit for too long in some areas because it was already almost there. So just constantly checking that part was very key in this type of correction. Okay, so now you can see I have already moved on to that top rectangle side of her head, and oh my goodness guys, this part was probably the most challenging part. And after doing this, because this is my first time doing her hair, and to be honest, I've never done a placement like this where there's like a rectangle disconnected from the money piece alone by itself on the top. So since this is my first time doing her hair, I was trying to figure out what the best way to approach this was, and I pretty much did the same thing that I did in the front. I tackled those warm pieces on the mid lengths and ends first, and then I went ahead and hit that root later on. But the most difficult part of this part was keeping the bleach parts and the dark parts separate. So that one was a huge struggle. And after doing this correction, I now know what I would be doing next time to just make it a little bit faster, more efficient. But yeah, so now that I've pretty much foiled everything, I'm going in and pretty much double checking my foils. You can see that the root is catching up to those mids and ends. And the part you can see on that one side that I'm already done, I pulled out those foils and just put extra fresh lightener wherever it was a little bit warmer. And as you can see, you guys, I am constantly working back and forth from the front to the back And even though these are like small sections, they took a lot of time and care because of how fast the blonde parts were lightening, and then how fast the roots were lightening, and then how detailed we had to be for this type of application. You know, it was so funny because this client texted me earlier in the week, probably just like a couple days before her appointment, and I saw her pictures and I immediately wanted to take her on because it looked like this was going to be a challenge. And when you're doing hair behind the chair like almost every day, and you're doing very similar things every day, you know, sometimes you just want something that's challenging and fun. And if you guys know me, I love a good color correction that makes me think, and this one definitely made my brain hurt a little bit. I would say that these type of corrections are very difficult, but can be one of the most satisfying things to do once it's completed. Okay, so this is the part where I probably would have done a little bit differently now that I know how her hair took the color and everything. So right now you can see that the blonde is all done processing, and I'm going in and applying the dark. By the way, for her dark formula, we didn't want to do something that was too black. So I believe we did like a 5/8, which is a level 5 brown liquid demi, and we applied this on the mid-lengths and ends to get rid of that type of like ombre balayage look that she had going on, because again, she wanted something that was high contrast. And now, knowing what I know after doing the whole thing, I think I would have saved this entire part for the very end after I've toned the silver and on the blonde, because later you'll see that it was just really difficult to keep the dark and silver separate. And what I did wrong was thinking that I could tone the dark part and the silver part at the same time and it would tone. But what I was facing was some of the light toner was getting into the darker toner, and then those areas just weren't toning because the two toners were mixing on the hair. So definitely next time what I would be doing differently is just toning the silver first, like all the light parts first, then completely clipping that out and toning the dark part last. Okay, so real quick guys, so after I did this part, I toned the silver part, and for the silver part I did a mixture of the Pulp Bright Rapid Toners. I did Silver Violet and Moonstone, and I rinsed that all out. And when I rinsed it all out, I blow dried it, and I realized some of the dark just wasn't as dark as I'd like it to be honest, I went back in and retoned some of the dark anyways. So again, that's why I would totally just do the lighter toner and then the darker toner separate. But another thing is I didn't get a video of me toning the silver part, unfortunately, because it was getting late and we had been working on this for a really long time. So at this point, I just kind of wanted to finish and wrap everything up. So I'm sorry that I didn't get that part, but next time she comes in, hopefully we'll try and get some footage of that if you guys want to see that later on. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. You can see that the top part looks nice and silvery. Since that top part, the silver toner was on for quite a bit, it did get slightly violety, but that will literally wash out in about a wash or two and get to a silver toner. But you can see that the dark in between is a nice dark brown. It's not totally black just yet, but she absolutely loved how this turned out and how even it was. I would say that this color correction was definitely very challenging for me, but so satisfying at the very end, seeing how happy she was with the turnout of it. And now I know for next time when she comes in for her touch-up, what we will do differently. And with every time a client comes in, you always kind of tweak the formula and technique a little bit to make it a little bit better. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.